Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. On this channel, we talk about matters important to the country, the economy, as well as your money. Now, nothing is more important to the country's future economic policy than the balance of power in the United States Senate. Right now, we have 50 Democratic senators and we have 50 Republican senators, and the tie-breaking vote is cast by Vice President Kamala Harris. There she is. Hello, Vice President Harris. Now, one of the most important senators, if not the most important senator in the United States Senate, is the conservative Democrat from West Virginia, Joe Manchin. Now, as we know, President Joe Biden and Joe Manchin have actually known each other for a long time. And I believe the relationship between President Biden and Joe Manchin, the conservative Democrat from West Virginia, has the potential to shape the rest of the Biden presidency. This fundamentally is a tale of two Joes. Here's the headline of an article from CNN: Regular Joes, Biden and Manchin, whose old relationship faces a new test. Folks, I believe that the relationship between President Biden and Joe Manchin will dictate the Build Back Better agenda, the $3 trillion infrastructure plan, and pretty much everything else that President Biden wants to accomplish during his presidency. Now, it's very clear that President Biden wants to get as much done as he can because not only do the Democrats have the White House, but the Democrats have the majority, a razor-thin majority in the House as well as the Senate. And before the midterm elections coming up next year, there are clear signs that President Biden is open to using the process of reconciliation again. Remember, reconciliation was used to pass the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. It's very clear that President Biden plans on using reconciliation again for the $3 trillion Build Back Better agenda. So, in other words, President Biden is happy going it alone without a single Republican vote, without a single Republican supporting any of the major agendas in the House or the Senate. But guess what? Joe Manchin doesn't feel that way. Here's a quote from Joe Manchin about the importance of partisanship and the importance of trying to reach across the aisle and get ideas from the other side, the Republicans. Here's what he said: "We've got to work together here. Why don't you ask people when was the last time they took time to talk to some of the people on this side? Try to convince them or work with them. Just try to do it. Have you had dinner with them? Have you had lunch with them? Have you had a cup of coffee with them? Try something." And by the way, I've been seeing a lot of online forums kind of blow up with my basically terrible impersonation. So I'm going to try and give it a go. Let's imagine we have President Joe Biden here. What's up, President Biden? And we have Joe Manchin here, the conservative Democrat from West Virginia. What's up, Joe? So you guys ready for the call? All right, here's a call between President Biden and Joe Manchin. Ready? I'm going to pick up the phone. Hello, Joe. Yes, Mr. President. It's Joe, man. We got to do this together, man. What's holding you back? Come on, man. It's two Joes. You want to come over for a cup of Joe to the White House? Want to come over? Yes, Mr. President. I'll be there tomorrow. No, man. Come over today. Anytime's a good time for a cup of Joe between two Joes. Let's do this, man. I need your vote. Come on over. I'm coming, Mr. President. And that is an unofficial transcript. That was a scoop. That was a major reveal on our channel about a phone call between President Biden and the conservative Democrat from West Virginia, Joe Manchin. Now, what's interesting is that the relationship between President Biden and Joe Manchin has evolved over the years. They've known each other for a very long time. Here's an interesting comment about the dynamics of their relationship from CNN. Joe Manchin is a centrist power center in the Senate. He is representing the voters of West Virginia, where the gulf with the National Democratic Party is even wider than it was a decade ago. To admirers, Joe Manchin is seen as confident. To critics, he's seen as self-important. But already, Manchin has demonstrated a willingness to wield his outsized power in ways that force the White House to react. And this is where things get really interesting. I know a lot of our viewers and subscribers followed my up-to-the-minute coverage of the passage of the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. Well, there was a call between President Biden and Joe Manchin that led to Joe Manchin supporting the bill. This is some very interesting reporting from CNN, and it goes like this. Manchin felt blindsided by an agreement Democrats reached to make jobless benefits tax-free. So Joe Manchin wasn't happy that the jobless benefits were going to be tax-free. So he essentially balked and he stalled the progress of the bill for several hours. There was a risk that the bill would not go through. So here's what happened. This is important. After being lobbied by several of his Senate colleagues, Manchin ultimately received a phone call from President Biden, who aides said was deliberately careful not to add pressure to the situation. So here's how the call went. Here's President Biden, here's Joe Manchin, and here's the phone, and it's ringing. Hey Joe, it's Joe. I'm trying not to add pressure to the situation, but you gotta sign. You gotta vote for that bill, man. No pressure. You gotta do it, man. Mr. President, I'm concerned about this tax-free benefit, and rich families will get the benefit. What do you need, Joe? You want some income cap or something? Yes, Mr. President, I think that there should be $150,000 income cap in order for individuals to get these tax-free benefits. Okay, Joe, you got it. Listen, man, just vote for it. I gotta go. Major's calling me. I gotta play with my dogs. Come on, man. I just gotta chill, man. I gotta go. Just vote for it, okay? I'll see you. Yes, Mr. President, you got it. And that's probably how that call went. At least that's how I think it went. And they've known each other for about a decade, so it's not like they've known each other for 30, 40 years, but they have known each other for about a decade. Back in November 2013, Manchin invited President Biden to deliver a keynote address at the Jefferson Jackson Diner in West Virginia, and it was a night that was celebrating another senator. And Manchin controlled the Democratic Party back then, and I would say he still controls the Democratic Party now. And he said, and he actually told his associates that he wanted President Biden to be one of the few Democratic national figures that should visit and play an important role in that meeting, if you will, in West Virginia. And this is what President Biden said at that time. This is President Biden talking about Joe Manchin, okay? This is, I guess, Big Joe talking about Little Joe. I just came up with that. That was not planned, that was improvised. So Big Joe talking about Little Joe, saying, Joe and I have become pretty good friends. So you have Big Joe, President Biden, and you have Little Joe, Joe Manchin. Joe and I have become pretty good friends, President Biden said, essentially praising Joe Manchin, who actually, this is interesting, who actually became famous as a star football player in West Virginia. This is super interesting. And I think this is a good point to end the video. This is what President Biden said about Joe Manchin. You ready? He said, Joe can take a hit and Joe can also give a hit. There you have it, everybody. Big Joe talking about Little Joe and saying that Little Joe can take a hit and also give a hit. Well, right now it's time for the two Joes to work together for the good of the country and try and get things done, because it's clear that the Democrats need every single vote that they can get. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time. I hope you learned something new about this video, including these highly confidential, these top secret, extremely made up phone calls between President Biden and the conservative senator from West Virginia, Joe Manchin. Now, folks, I'll leave you with one thought. I know that Joe Manchin gets a lot of criticism on our channel, on many channels, about his approach and the fact that he's not for the common man. But I want our viewers and subscribers to know that Joe Manchin is nowhere close to the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. If the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell was still the majority leader, in other words, if Georgia had not gone the way of the Democrats, I don't think we would have had a $1.9 trillion stimulus bill voted on the floor of the Senate, let alone passing the floor of the Senate and getting signed into law by the president. So I believe Joe Manchin gets a lot of criticism, and some of it, comparing him with the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, is not an apples to apples comparison. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. I want you to know, for me, it's not about the red or the blue. It's about the red, white, and blue. I'm not Democrat. I'm not Republican. I'm American first. We are all Americans first. Please check out my video. You'll learn a little bit more about who I am, what my journey has been like, and why you should listen to me. Thank you. Finally, please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. I would really appreciate that. That would mean a lot to me, and that really helps out the YouTube algorithm. I appreciate you very much. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.